Go.
I
I
love it.
was this thing. I'm waiting for this thing to go first.
So I
Okay,
did a
here.
consultation the other day. Hey guys, we're going to talk about everything you could possibly do to put more hair on your head today. I've done a couple of consultations recently. I started kind of taking them back from my staff. Wasn't happy with the closing numbers. You know, we're getting a lot of leads and some of them weren't closing. Don't know why. Don't know if the wrong things are being said. And I thought, let me just get back involved a little bit. So I've been like re-energized about what and why and how people think. And it's interesting to me that people know a few things. Like the general public knows. We're going to go through everything that we know of, and we know a lot, but disclaimer, we might skip one or two, just, I don't know, unknowingly. So please put them in the comments, or if you're watching even right now, mention them if we kind of skip over any. But I find it's very interesting that I do a consultation and they'll say, listen, I'm too thin for hair extensions. I don't want my head shaved and that thing glued on my head, and a wig's too hot. What can you do? I'm like, okay. So it's funny that they hit one or two or those three categories, but never much more. But they're also saying, what can you do to me and or for me? And I get the feeling, and I've been asking lately, I get the feeling that they want me to just go, abracadabra, you have hair, you know. And I've even asked a few of them, so you mentioned the things you don't want. What are you hoping I can do? And they never know. They're like, I don't know. They're hoping there's something that they have never heard of that's kind of in between. So to make them feel more comfortable and at ease, and then they end up usually buying one of the options, because at this point we do most of these options. And it all starts with the one of the options, I guess I should say. And we're not going to go into great detail about every single one because I want to cover almost all of them today as fast as we can. And surgery is one. If you start losing your hair, surgery is an option. There's a lot of downside. There's a lot of expense, and it's still not guaranteed, but it's usually a little further down the line. And there's so many non-surgical options. That's what we're mostly going to cover today. We did a video in the past about surgery versus non-surgery, and that'd be a good one to go back to. Maybe even we could even link it here to go back and see where they put the little, all the different surgery options. But you had some good points. When somebody's first thinking about, I want or need more hair, they're starting to thin, where do they start in your mind? You're an active hairdresser behind the chair, and you had some good points that they are actually committing before they even realize they're committing by doing what?
Yeah. A lot of, the first thing that happens is you start noticing a lot of hair in the tub. That's the first place you start noticing it.
A
When you
lot of
take a
hair. You
shower,
mean a lot of hair leaving the top?
leaving, no, in the, like in the, yeah, right. From the top into the tub.
You start
You're in the
noticing a lot of
shower.
hair in the top. A lot of hair gone in the top.
Gone from the top, and then all of a
Yes.
sudden it's all in the shower. It's all over the sink. It's all over the floor, and you're scooping it all up, and you're like, man, I got a ball of hair. I'm shedding.
Where is this
That's the
coming from?
first thing. Everyone's like, man, I've been shedding more excessively than usual. So
Right.
maybe I need to start styling my hair differently. That's the first thing they do. Oh, I got to style my hair differently. It must be my shampoo. It must be my blow dryer. It must be my brush. And that's the first thing people start doing. They start styling their hair differently.
That's a good point, because that is the first step. It's the freest, cheapest, easiest step and least committal, hoping that works. Which brings me to a point that I didn't even write down in my list is we start trying to camouflage the bald or thinning area. And I would have to say another disclaimer. Go to your doctor, make sure you're healthy. If you're starting to lose hair, it might be bad diet, a sickness, an illness, something bigger and worse coming on. Possibly not, probably not. Most of the time it's not. It's usually genetic or a diet, and we're just losing hair from a diet or stress, and we're perfectly healthy, and we just need to calm down. But you do want to find out first that you're not dying, because
Right.
I mean, seriously, because loss of hair is some of the first signs of health going downhill.
Well, your hair and your nails. That's
hair,
that's
skin, and
your
nails.
storm sign.
So go make sure you're getting all the vitamins that you're supposed to be having, all the macros, micros, all that kind of stuff. Make sure you're healthy first. And then if you decide to start, because I've even got a dermatologist that after she checks all this out, she does surgery. And sometimes she thinks a lot of ladies are not a candidate for surgery because they don't just want some hair up top. Most ladies want a lot of hair up top. Men are okay with some hair up top. Women want a lot of hair. So usually she's sending her lady clients to me for some of these options we'll talk about here. So after all of that, people will put the different colored powders on their scalp and or tattoos, micropigmentation, to tattoo their scalp a different color so it doesn't look as white compared to the color hair. And the darker our hair is, the thinner we look because you see that white scalp through there. So blondes don't notice it as soon as brunettes and darker hair. So then there's some things that you sell that is another option that people will start to do or continue to do even through some of the next ones.
Yeah, a lot of styling, you know, when the styling starts to fail, when you're starting to blow dry your hair and you're starting to style your hair, you're starting to wear your hair differently, and it's no longer working. It's no longer creating, it's a Band-Aid fix.
Right.
You're not addressing the issue, but you don't realize what the issue is just yet. So then after it starts failing, you start seeking out actively information. And you're like, oh, what can I do? What can I do? And you start asking friends, you start asking people, and everybody will start recommending products. Now there's a multitude of different kinds of products out there. A lot of them over the counter, a lot of them professional, a lot of them in between.
Thickening shampoo,
thickening, volumizing, you know, when I say it is a multi-billion-dollar, double-digit billion-dollar a year revenue in just volumizing category in products, it is insane. Anything with thickening and volume sells like a hotcakes because people have this need or they have this concern. When you start coming to the salon, we will start recommending you more professional products. And above and beyond the products, now you start getting into category of systems in hair regrowth products. These kind of products, whether they're minoxidil, whether they're nutraceutical, whether they're organic, whether they're natural, you hear a lot of people talking about tea tree oils and pumpkins and rosemaries and, you know, all these things. I personally represent a product that I personally believe in. It's called Xenogen. It's a hair regrowth system. It uses your natural body's chemistry. It's not chemical based. So I'll recommend things like that. And that'll help thicken your hair. It could potentially help grow your hair if it's not too far gone. It'll definitely stop shedding. It'll help hair grow longer. So these are the kind of things that a lot of stylists will start talking about. And if we start seeing a dermatologist may start recommending more medicinal versions of it or medical versions of it. They might start recommending a steroid, or like I mentioned, the minoxidil. They might start recommending chemical ingredients in controlled versions, obviously, where they will monitor continually over the course of the next 6 months to a year or however long you're on it for. So that would be the next step that a lot of people turn to.
I know men get really tagged with this one big style technique called the comb over, where a guy will let this section of hair grow really long and pull it over. But you know, a lot of ladies do something very similar. They just part their hair.
It's called a part.
Truly, it's just a deeper, more.
Yeah, right. Part. And that's called fashion. On a guy, that's called terrible. On a girl, that's called fashion.
That's funny. But from there, I think you brought up, I was going to go straight to extensions, and you brought up a whole world of things that people will start to do. They'll start to buy little, you know what, the hair scrunchie. Remember that was huge in the 80s, 90s, and it's kind of come back a little bit recently, where it's just something that you put your hair in a ponytail with, but it's got a little extra hair. Well, you put a scrunchie that looks like 3-4 inch hair around a messy ponytail. It makes it look like you have more hair. That's the start of making it look like you have more hair. And then, of course, there's clip-in extensions. There's little wiglets, little pieces, clip-on toppers. Has been a thing that really popped on the scene over the last few years. And I hated the name at first, topper. We're going to top it off, you know. But that name has really stuck for, it's pretty descriptive, too. It's on top. It tops you off with a little bit more hair. And it was an easy thing to put on and take off, and it's mostly clip-in. But you've got to consider the good and the bad of everything. And for me, a lot of these products, you have to watch the clips. I don't want to go deep into the weeds on this one, but there's coated clips, non-coated clips. The clips should be getting moved. The worst clips in the same place over and over. If you're putting 4 clips on your head, they start causing bald spots where the clips are. So temporary hair is not always the best option either. Although it can, if you understand the downside and you move the clips or turn the system, which is going to mess up your part and your cut and all that kind of stuff. But sometimes you'll have 2 or 3 times as many clips as you need and use every other clip every other day or every third clip and not stress your hair out in those same places or do a lot of pulling or styling. But after some of these techniques,
those accessories have wear and tear, have heavy consequences for long-term, wear and tear.
I like what you said earlier too, when we were talking about this before we went live. You said a lot of these people think by not coming to us, they're not committing, but really by buying some of these things,
so heavily committed.
They don't realize they've already committed to putting more hair in their head, but they're saying, I don't want to commit.
Let this be a PSA.
Okay.
If you are trying to fix your hair and avoiding seeing your hairstylist or a specialist, realize that you are spending as much money, if not more, than just going to see the specialist.
And I guess,
or the
I guess that's the thing. I guess they think they're saving money, right? They think it's going to be.
But they're not.
But they're also just dipping their foot in the pool, I think, of seeing
baby
if maybe more hair. And then there's the whole world of human versus synthetic. And when we get to the end of this, I'll tell the end of my story really quick and just say that I have found that in wigs, there are some, it's more about the base material and how the wig's made, but there's some synthetic fibers that I actually did a consultation and sold a wig a couple of days ago, and I was trying it on the lady, and the tag didn't say if it was human or synthetic. And so it didn't say it on the big tag, but on the box, but it said it on the little tag inside the wig, but it was already on her head. And she goes, now, is this human or synthetic? I said, I'm not really sure. I mean, I couldn't tell.
Felt that good.
Oh, it's so crazy. I said,
they've really been working on the technology.
Well, I said, I know from the price and where I bought this, because I got a bunch of them on the wall, I'm pretty sure it's synthetic. She goes, no way. I said, I know. That's what I'm trying to tell you. It's not the hair that is so obvious these days. It's how it's made. And so there's a lot of steps in between, but I am selling wigs more than ever lately because synthetic looks so freaking good. There's somebody in your area that I'm getting ready to get some wigs for, that I got to kind of give you some advice on what to do with them when you get them, because he called me yesterday and we're getting some sent your way. But the old wiggy look was a flowery cap underneath. It was supposed to be comfortable. And then they made it out of wefts. And then they put these short frizzy hairs all on the scalp with the long hairs, because when you parted the hair and you looked, they didn't want you to see scalp because the scalp didn't look real. It looked like a fake wig base. So they put these fuzzy hairs in there. But a lot of old ladies that were wearing wigs way back when they were invented, I say invented, I mean, that's hundreds of years, but popularized in this century.
Commercialized and popularized.
They were teasing their hair a lot. So they were getting that little cushion base near their scalp anyway, because they were doing it to make the hair look thicker. That's another styling technique we didn't talk about. Just teasing to look thicker because you hide the scalp. But people stop teasing, but the wigs are still made that way. So now if you do a wig where the knotting is done better, where it looks like each individual hair coming out the base of a scalp of a base that looks like a scalp, is that better? A lace, potentially. I was trying to say lace and base at the same time. Well, now it'll look like it's coming right out of your head. It doesn't matter if it's synthetic or human. The fact that synthetics look so good now, it can be so much less expensive and look really good and give you more options. Of course, some downsides to both human and synthetic, depending on what's going on. But the fact that the bases are endless now. They can be old-fashioned flowery cap, and you can get a wig for like $100, $150, or you can buy one for $2,000 or $3,000, or get into human, which is in the thousands, or low-quality human. But just a real good synthetic wig is a great option. But let's go jump back to the top, because wig was kind of the last thing on my list, but I just wanted to mention it because extensions is where a lot of people go next, right? Because you go into hair extensions, and this is the progression I'd like to do now. I'm just starting to thin a little. I made a decision to go to a hairdresser to talk about it. The downside for you as a client out there listening to us right now is be careful when you go to a hairdresser, because they usually try to sell you the only one or two or three things they know about.
That they know about. Yeah.
That they know about. And that's the problem. So if you as the client know about all of these options and figure out which one might be better for you, you might find a hairdresser in the area that does, I was saying earlier, in the area that does this particular technique for you. And maybe the few in between that people might put in the comments that we don't mention. But in my experience, and what we do is first extensions. That's the first thing that we do to help people get more hair on their head. And it's amazing how many people will come in and say, look how thin I am right here in this part area. I need something up here. And I say, you're actually thin all the way through here also. You just don't see it because so much hair is laying over it. So if I put hair here, here, and here in the back also, I'll take these skinny ends and fatten them up so much that you'll have this thicker hair all over, that maybe this part won't matter as much. As a matter of fact, I would venture to say that that part, although in your head is 100% of the problem, if we fix the sides and back, which is like 80% of the problem, it'll feel like we fixed closer to 90% of the problem. And that little thin part won't be as big a concern to you. But don't get me wrong, your part will still be thin, but it won't be as difficult, as expensive, and as invasive as a top of the hair system, because it becomes a little more maintenance when you start covering the top of the head.
Let me add one more thing to that.
Go ahead. And I've done that for quite a few clients that are like, oh my God, you were so right. I love it. I'm good. I love the extensions. And it's a little more socially acceptable up to today.
It is. It is. I know. I 100%. I agree with you. The thing I want to add to that, when you're doing your research, some clients do a lot of research before they come in, and they come in with opinions. Some clients, they just come in fresh, no idea what's going on. They're just asking. If you're doing your research, when you go online, understand that everybody is recommending something from their own experience. Like Bernard, you just mentioned, a lot of stylists, and I'm not saying this is a bad thing, but a lot of stylists learn one way of doing it, maybe two ways of doing hair extensions. They go all in on that, and they get really good at doing those one or two things that they know. When you, the client, come in, your type of hair may or may not be a match for that type of system that they use, or that type of technique that they perform.
But it's all they know.
But that's all they know. So you got to ask questions. Equally so, when you, the client, are doing your research online, don't just go by popular opinion. Oh, I heard, I read, I saw, this is good. It seems like the general consensus, this is popular. Right. Therefore, I need this. You don't need this. You think you don't need it. You don't want it. You think you want it.
And the first thing that fit that category was tape-in extensions, and now more recently is hand-tied extensions.
And now it's hand-tied.
It's almost like the fad diets, like, oh, everybody's doing carnivore diet. It must be the best thing for me. Maybe not. I think that there's nothing new or different about food for hundreds of years. It's just you got to find out what works best for your body. Maybe eating all vegetables is good. Maybe all meat. Maybe you need a blend. That's where you got to figure out what's good for you. Same thing with hair. Yeah. So tape-ins were never good for fine, thin hair, but so many people thought they were because the internet started saying it, because it was so fast and easy to do that hairdressers could buy it on Amazon. Even clients could slap two pieces of tape together and it stayed in so fast and easy. People just started saying, this has got to be good for everybody's hair. It's so gentle. It's no glue. It's almost glue. It's tape. But what is glue? I don't even think there are any extension techniques that are put in with glue anymore, but people consider.
No, there still is.
Like what?
The tracks.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess glue and a wax in can still be done. But a lot of people considered a keratin bond a glue, and they consider a tape in a glue. So when they say no tape.
Okay.
And so I would say that a tape in is not a glue. And that's what made it a little better, because it was a softer, and it was
it's an adhesive, right?
It was supposed to slip out or fall out without damage. The problem is it was a little too heavy for the sections, and the adhesives got more and more aggressive, and it stayed in so well that the little skinny section that most people put them on couldn't support the weight, and it caused some breakage. I would say the most breakage was usually the client waiting too long to come back to get them redone, or the hairdresser rushing the removal and doing a whole lot of combing to that gooey, gluey mess. And it was no fun. No fun getting it out or redoing the adhesive. So we all tried to rush it, and we would push the boundaries of potential no damage, but probably got some damage, even me, because I just hated the removal. I just had a girl give me a bunch of bad words on a text yesterday because she said, I took a tape-in client. We talked about it once on here. I took her at a big discount to show my stylists because they're new.
Yeah.
They don't know what tape is. And we did her hair. And I was honest. I said, we're going to do your hair just once for a real low price. I want to show my stylists I don't love tape-ins. Are you okay with that? She was. So yesterday she's like, I need them redone. I said, I told you we don't redo tape-in. She goes, you misled me. I said, I didn't. She goes, I'm sorry. I'm just having a bad day. I told you I don't like tape-ins. I thought, you know what? It's been a while. I've been talking bad about them for a long time. Let me just go ahead and experience one with my stylist, and maybe my mind will be changed. Maybe I'll sell beaded extensions to you. Maybe my stylist will love doing it, and it's my bias. But together, we all just hated the day. We had fun together, but taking them out was such a sticky, gooey mess. Cleaning them up. My son Taylor sat at a table. He loves tedious work. He's like, I'll do this part. I love this tedious work. I said, well, perfect. Maybe you'll do hers next time. He goes, oh no, never again. As much as he liked that part of the job more than the putting them back in or coloring the client's hair while it was getting cleaned up, he just liked that tedious work. It took like 3 or 4 of us 3 or 4 hours to do it, and it just wasn't worth it. So with extensions, another big popular one, let's cover some of the ones they do themselves. Clip-ins, right? So people put clip-ins on themselves. They'll glue a wefted track in. Some people will do braids and different kind of twists, things where you can do each other's hair. But even again, clips, those clips are super damaging, hanging from the hair and pulling and causing some damage. Oh, there's those ones connected to a string where, you wear the string across the top. It's got a weft in there.
Yeah. The reusable.
And that string would get a little twisted up here and cause a little bit of a sideways part damage. They call it traction alopecia. So one of the big differentiators I want to put here that's super important is that in all these extension techniques that we're talking about, one of the I love great divides, what makes them all one way or another? Tension versus non-tension. And I'll say I even don't like some of the non-tension techniques, but I like none of the tension techniques. When you're putting tension on the head unnecessarily, what's the point of it? So with the original extensions where you would do like a cornrow braid along the scalp or a track, and it's where I started because it's all there was. And then you have tightness on the scalp, which is pulling and tension. And then you put a weft and sew it to it. You're just pulling. So that's kind of what the new hand-tied extension has been born out of. They're taking the I-tip extension and they're putting beads along the head, pulling too much tension with hair from all kind of weird wrong directions, like I drew in a video a week or two ago. And then after this uncomfortable tension, they string a string between the beads sometimes and call it a waterfall instead of a hand-tied. Put the weft on there and add more tension by sewing it on. So I just don't like that. And as much as I'd like to say even tape-in is a non-tension technique. So it started off as a better than the tension techniques. It was just too much weight for the little section is what I ended up not liking about later, because I did a lot of tape-in the early days. And the reason I can hate so many techniques so much now is I did them. And then I found better techniques that were healthier for the hair. So I stopped doing the old techniques. So when I saw wefts come back around again, the first thing I did was hate them. And I was like, why? Why are you bringing a tension technique back when we've got, as much as I don't love I-tips for their fungus and smelly problem, I-tips were a non-tension technique and a reusable hair. It was our first, like, other than tape-ins, it was our first move into the reusable hair market. And it was a genius idea because we were throwing so much of hair away. And it's sad because keratin tips, to me, are still probably the most customizable, most invisible, but it's got its own drawbacks. There's no tension. So it's probably the best all around extension, but it's very expensive and very time consuming. And the removal is very time consuming. And then you can't reuse the hair. So it's got a lot of negatives, the keratin tips, but it's never going to go away because it's such a customizable. It's almost like the Bentley of vehicles, like
It really is. Yeah,
the high
depending
end.
on the type of hair you have, that's the versatility. You can customize it to how you need to make it match whatever hair you're working on. But yeah, it definitely it's definitely going to be out of reach for the general public.
Right. Like I don't have a Rolls Royce. I'd love to have one. A client rolled up in one a few months ago, and said, "You want to come see it?" And I'm like, "Yes." And it's like, wow. I mean, you open the door, and in the part of the door nobody ever cares about, in the hinge part of the door, there's this round thing. You push it, and it's like a big button, and it's a full-size umbrella in the door that says Rolls Royce on the umbrella. And he said, I wanted to buy a few extra for some family members, and they were $800 a piece. So I told him, no, thank you. I thought, you just bought a Rolls Royce. What's an $800 umbrella matter? So anyway, it's like
that's the tip extensions. That's the Rolls Royce of hair extensions.
Right. You don't need a Rolls Royce to get from point A to point B. But if you want to roll in a little more style, a little more just the best of the best, that's keratin. It's gonna. And of course, there's low end and high end keratin, and we sell a keratin, a she hair keratin. It's very comfortable. It's very customizable if done right by the right hairdresser. It's just you can't reuse the hair, so it's very expensive every time you do it. That's the downside, and it takes a long time to take them out and put them in. But if you want that perfect match in, I don't know, quantity, quality, the size, the color, you can just customize so much more. And we sell it. But the next best thing to me, we moved really quick from extensions you could do yourself. I was saying clip-ins, and then we moved into other extensions. But other than clip-ins, you got top of the head, clip-on toppers. We talked a little bit about.
Then those comb wiglets or the ponytails, like those things with the comb.
With the ponytail, comb. Yeah. There's a lot of sort of, and I said everything you could.
Over the counter. That's what I consider over the counter.
Right. And I guess wigs would fall into that category. But I was doing two things, and I guess they're not linear together. One was the choices of, as your hair's getting thinner, what do you do? But then I started saying things you could do yourself. So that threw us off a little bit. Let's
just remind me of something.
Bernardo. Go ahead. What?
Next week being Halloween. Please, if you're going to get a Halloween costume, do not gel slick back your hair to your scalp. Like a lot of these wigs, you have to the wigs are so tight because they're like a one size fits all.
Yeah.
So a lot of women, they'll take all their hair and they'll ball it all up and they'll try to get it into like what are those silk caps that you use when you get in the shower, or before you put a wig on, you put those little caps on.
A wig
they'll
cap.
You try to jam all your hair in there, and then you try to slip that tight, one size fits all wig on.
What's wrong with that?
When you go to pull it off, please don't tilt your head sideways and just go.
So maybe
please take it off nicely, slowly, step by step. I can tell you how many times anybody with a ponytail, you know exactly what am I talking about.
Right,
anybody with a messy bun, they all tilt their head to the right. I don't know. It's always to the right.
Let's stay
and
on
they just rip.
If you're going to do extensions for thin hair, what is the next thing a person does? They say their hair's thin. I did extensions instead of something on the top of the head, but now they're getting to the point where they do need something on top of their head. Extensions are generally for the side of the head. You can sneak them on up to wherever that part is, but when you need to do the top, it's got a name out there. Some people call it a closure. You can do it the smallest little skin-like hair system in the skin area. Or now, if we're going to put something on top of the head, let's talk about another great divide. You're going to have things you can do at home, or you have things that the professional can do. And then you're going to have options that you have to shave your head or not shave your head, right? Am I missing anything there?
No, because you just mentioned, right, you can get the things that you can clip on to the part area. Yeah, then the next thing, right? Yeah, then that's the next thing. You got to make a decision.
So,
Ultimately, that's what it is. What's your vanity? Where are you at?
well, I think another thing to think of here is uh, people will ask human or synthetic. I I gave a big push for synthetic early on in this video, but I want to kind of be clear of one of the divides of when to choose human or synthetic. If a professional's putting it on your head and it's staying on your head 24 hours a day, day and night, you're sleeping in the hair, which to me is the best option. Get hair that you're going to live in. That even if you're going to have someone join in the bed with you at night, do you want to take your hair off and wake up different than you went to sleep? Most people would say no. So that's when you have to choose human, because human is going to take more heat, more friction than synthetic. Synthetic's a great option when it's something that's coming off of your head in the evening and back on. And it's also a better option potentially when you have a decent amount of hair and you don't look that much different going to bed or waking up in the morning and putting your hair on. You're just adding a little more hair and most people don't mind. Or you're single and you can hide the fact that you don't have hair at night. And some people, even in a relationship, completely bald. I've got one lady client who wears a sort of like a wig, but it's a custom made wig that we make. But she wears a thing to sleep in, like some sort of cap, a sleeping cap. So nobody ever sees her bald head at home. I'm the only one, or one of our stylists, the only one that ever sees it. So if you're going to wear hair 24 hours a day, it needs to be human. If you're going to take it off at night, it could be synthetic and probably the better choice. But when we go to top of the head and we're talking about clipping a system on that you're doing, and now you're moving into a more professional, having a hairdresser help you out with that. The first option, I would say, the first two options of non-shave techniques is a long hair bond and a beaded topper. So what we do is we take a system that goes right on top of the hair you have, and we use the little round beads that work for our beaded extensions, which is a non-tension weft. I didn't even go into that earlier when I was really getting mad about the tension wefts and wefts coming back on the scene. I got so angry and I was like, all right, I guess I got to join the market and sell a weft with beads, but we got to get it away from the scalp. And then our manufacturer said we already have it in another country. It just didn't go over well in the US. When we first launched it, they launched it with the wrong company. And so we took it and it's gone huge. And I think timing was a thing. Wefts got huge. And so now we launched the beaded weft and the ultra weft and the beaded strands. And they're both non-tension techniques and are going crazy, really going crazy. And my salon loves it. We got one going on in the salon right now that we did a consultation for a sorority girl a couple of days ago. And she's coming in today to get them. And I mean, she wanted 22-inch hair. We've got long hair. She's young. She's pretty. She doesn't need more hair, but she wants it. So a long hair bond and the beaded one we were talking about, because that same beads from the weft and the strands are used, little mini micro beads, to put a system on top that would be a silicone base with holes in it. So I think I even have one right here. I got hair all over the place. It has, it's hair. It looks like a normal scalp, right? But the base itself has, you see the holes, you can pull your hair through those holes and add your client's hair to it. But you pull a little bit of hair through some of those little holes, the darker spots on that base, and put a bead, and it holds down in various spots all around the center and all around the edges, all through the center and all around the edges. And so now they have hair on top of their head. They didn't have to lose any of the hair on the top of their head. But if they get to the point where they did lose a little bit more, where they went up in the front and they've got a bald scalp in the front, the next version of that was called the volumizer. The next version of that is the enhancer. It's a lace front where it tapes down to the naked skin on the front and then beads down around the edges and through the center. So those are two options.
Saves what you have left, and you don't have to shave anything off.
Right. And so it's a good step in the direction of maybe eventually you'll have to shave or you'll lose the hair on top of your head and have to do a version where you're bonding the whole thing down. But even before that, we have something called a long hair bond. And it's where we put a system on the top of the head, and there's an adhesive that goes through the top of your hair right on down to the scalp and bond a system on, and you keep all of your hair. It's a little more time consuming for the removal, the cleanup, and the reapplication, but it's still a non-shave technique. Trying to make sure I didn't forget anything here. So I-tips, K-tips, we talked about all that. Tension, no tension, wigs.
We got them all.
I think we got them all. Yeah, I think we got them all.
So now you're at the point where you really don't have much left. The comb over ain't helping. Parting your hair is not helping. You don't have enough hair. Unfortunately, you've shed it so far gone. You don't have enough hair to support the amount that is needed to attach hair extensions to. Now you got to go shaving.
To hair replacement. Yeah. And I don't like to use the word shave. I'll usually say take the hair all the way down, take the hair off the top, clean the top so that we can bond to it. And you know what's interesting about this? As much as people fight this, it's the best looking. Because when I can take a lace or skin-like membrane and put it right down on the scalp, it's so thin, like a sheet of paper. The hair's coming out of it. You lay it on there, it looks like the hair's coming right out of the skin. Now, if I did that over hair and put it down, you see this dark hair shows through the mesh and makes the scalp not look as real. So if I can shave the hair off, get rid of the colored hair and have white scalp or peach scalp or light brown, whatever color your skin is, showing through the lace, it looks like it's coming right out of your head. And so always shaving the head is the best option. It's just not what people want to do. They want to fight that option, you know, and ladies more than men want to fight that option. And I get it. It's fine, you know. So if we can offer all those other options before that, we do. And we try to help people avoid taking the hair off the top of their head. But like you just said, sometimes it is the next best option and they have no more choice. They've been wearing a wig for years. So we shave the top of the head, and it's not the whole head. Some people think you're shaving the whole head. It's usually just an area on top like that, or maybe a little bigger if they're thinning, or maybe it's just right back here. On a lot of men, they just lose hair in the back. We do a little circle and we just do that. And as they start to lose more hair, we can make it bigger and bigger over time. So just covering the bald area or a very thin area. And then if they just don't want to do that because it is a little more expensive than a wig is the other option. If you're so thin, you need to pull a wig over your whole head. And wigs can be fun, as you just started to show with Halloween. You know, wigs can be just for fun or for need. And I think we've covered it all. Any comment? We didn't get one comment during this show. People must be sleeping. Not one comment.
Everybody's out costume shopping. Everybody's getting ready for trick or treat.
I thought this was going to be a good video too. Maybe it'll be good later.
No, it's a good video. Look, because this is the progression. Outside of this, up until this point, now you start moving into the surgical, you know, and at that point we covered that on a prior video that we talked about surgical versus non-surgical. You should, if you're starting to notice shedding, excessive shedding, more than usual, is it simply just seasonal? Is it more than that? Don't ignore it. Pay attention to what's going on. Ask your stylist, you know, when you're going in for a haircut, just your regular color service, whatever you're styling that you're doing. Ask first and don't be embarrassed. A lot of clients share with their stylist so many personal things. So it's always funny to me when I have a client tell me, I'm kind of embarrassed to ask you this, but, and then they start saying something and it's like, really?
That's my job.
Right? The story you told me last time blows this away 10 times over. You should have been embarrassed about that behavior, not this question, you know?
Right.
So yeah, totally ask. And, you know, we will refer. We will tell you, look, I got you. This is what you can do. I've seen this 100 times on 100 other clients. Or, you know what? I think so. You should go see medical professional, dermatologist, a doctor, a gastro something. You know, a lot of issues and shedding occurs just from inflammation, not having a proper diet for your type of body. Like you mentioned, don't just do the trending diet. Make sure it works for your body's chemistry.
Right.
So yeah, don't be embarrassed. You know, start taking a look at it and start mentioning it. Start tracking it.
And since we have a little extra time, I'm just going to say this about surgery. There's nothing wrong with surgery. Basically, the most summarized version I can say is they're taking the hair from the back or the side of your head where it tends to stay longer than the top. They've taken it individual or 2 or 3 hairs at a time and moving it to the top. And as they move these hairs from the side to the top, they tend to grow for quite a while. But it's not gaining any hair on your head. And that's the thing I don't think a lot of people realize is you don't end up with more hair on your head. They just move them. They take where it looks really thick back here and they'll take out like a section of hair, pull that together, sew it up. So you just kind of have a bit of a scalp reduction down there. And then they slice it all up into a bunch of little individual hair grafts and plug them all up here. And so you look like you have more hair. And a good example of that, I mean, is like you can look on a lot of the celebrities that are older with a good hairline, like Sylvester Stallone. Elon Musk has a lot of old videos where he's really short and fuzzy here, but he's had a lot of transplants put here from the hair from the back of his head. So if they just start losing in the front or the top, you can get some of those longer hairs from the back put to the front. But at some point, it's just, you just don't have enough hair to move to do that. So you have to go into one of the other type of techniques if you want hair on your head. And one of the other, like I had started off with, is you'll notice a lot more men have surgery to have hair added than ladies, because usually surgery doesn't put enough hair on top to make a woman happy. And it takes 6 to 9 months for it to grow in. And it's like, I can fix that problem a lot faster with extensions or hair replacement. So why not? And that's what ends up happening. And with that, I'm done.
There's a lot of options out there, everybody. Yeah, right? There's a lot of options out there. Hopefully you were aware of a lot of these. Let us know if you learned a couple. Let us know if we missed a couple. And we'll go from there. Thanks, everybody, for watching.
John commented. He put comment. That's his comment.
He was looking for a comment, right?
Thank you, John. I feel better now.
Thank you for your comment. Goodbye. Thank you all for watching. We'll catch you all next week.